Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour is King County Public Health, and I'm using air quotes, fueling the drug crisis. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Over the weekend, tragedy struck in Texas. A devastating flood ripped through the hill country, and the lives of innocent children have been lost at a Christian summer camp. The numbers are still coming in, but what we know is horrific. Over 90 people are dead. Little girls drowned and swept away by floodwaters. Some are still missing. Families looking for their kids. This is a parent's worst nightmare. My wife and I decide to take July 4th and head on to Las Vegas for the weekend. And as we were driving around on Friday, my wife is tearing up in the car as we're driving, reading these stories. We both went to sleepaway camp. Our kids are in sleepaway camp right now. And the stories are absolutely heartbreaking of what these parents must be going through. It breaks the heart. It tears the heart to shreds. It tears these families apart. And instead of focusing on the tragedy, we saw people trying to politicize all of this. And it was absolutely despicable, absolutely disgusting that the left chooses this tragedy to say, oh, well, it wouldn't have happened if Trump hadn't signed the big, beautiful bill on Friday. Newsflash, you ghoulish morons. He signed a bill on Friday, which means if this stuff happened and you really want to blame climate change, all the stuff you guys did over the last 10, 15, 20 years didn't work. Think about that for a second. But two, he just signed a bill on Friday. You're going to blame this whole thing on him? You guys are so addicted to your death cult, your climate cult, that you are politicizing this tragedy. It's despicable. Absolutely despicable. Meanwhile, there's stories of heroism that aren't getting told. And there's some that really, really resonate with anybody who spent time in sleepaway camp. So, for example, there's a story about a boy counselor who saw the waters rising and coming into the bunk. And he told all of his campers, guys, climb up to the rafters. And they stayed up in the rafters until the floodwaters had receded. There's other horrific stories about girl counselors telling their campers that they were going to write their names on their bodies in case they had to be identified later. Horrifying, scary stuff that we don't even want to think about in our worst nightmares. And then what does the left do? The left runs to blame the Doge cuts to the National Weather Service. Even the left-wing media is backing off those claims right now. Because here's what the AP is now reporting. The National Weather Service office, which delivers forecasts for Austin, San Antonio, and the surrounding areas, had extra staff on duty during the storms. Where the office would typically only have 2 forecasters on duty, they had 5 on staff. They had extra people on duty that night. You now have the AP, Reuters, Politico, Axios, none of which are in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy, all defending the Trump administration and saying the Doge cuts had absolutely nothing to do with this whatsoever. Having been a guy who ran day camps before and who went to sleepaway camps, you know what the staff was busy dealing with? What's going to be for breakfast tomorrow morning? How are those activities going to be planned? When are we breaking out color war, socializing, all that kind of stuff? You think they're checking weather reports? Likely not. They're dealing with hundreds of campers. They're likely not checking the weather forecast. And here's something. Some of the warnings came in the middle of the night because you get updated weather models as a storm comes. All of the news about the storm was done in advance, and sometimes you can't do anything about it. When the water rises 26 feet in under an hour, you may not be able to evacuate at that point. People were trying to leave the camp, couldn't get out because they were blocked by a wall of water. And yet the left is politicizing this. It's disgusting. Locally, one of the worst human beings alive, Jay Inslee, former governor of Washington. I'm not even going to do the accent. I'm not even going to do the impression because what he said was so despicable. You see dead children. You see dead kids. And he says, it is hard to make the Texas flood tragedy worse. Okay, stop right there. Just stop right there. But then he makes it worse. What does he write? Except to know that on the same day Trump signed a bill cratering solar and wind energy that is vital to the battle against the climate change, making these torrential rains more frequent. So, it's hard to make it worse, but your cold-heartedness made it worse in record time. You evil, God, the words I want to say on the radio and I can't say on the radio, and I am not a guy who cusses a lot. Plus, here's something else. Our friend Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center pointed out that Washington's greenhouse gas emissions increased every year Jay Inslee was governor, except for 2020 during COVID when nobody was going anywhere. If climate change caused this tragedy, Jay Inslee's failure to combat it contributed towards it. Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center is going to be joining us at 4:30 with a full analysis of all of this. You people are sick, absolutely sick that you would politicize a tragedy like this. Rosie O'Donnell, who, she's looking rough. Shall I just say she's looking rough? She was one of the national voices that was terrible on this.
What a horror story in Texas. The flash floods in Texas, the Guadalupe River. 51 missing, 51 dead, more missing. Children at a camp. And you know, when the president guts all of the early warning systems and the weathering forecast abilities of the government, these are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law.
So hang on a second. Which one is it? The ridiculous bill he signed into law? Because the weather system thing you said was complete nonsense. It wasn't true at all. And yet you're blaming him? You people are ghouls. Absolute ghouls. You guys couldn't stand on the graves of those dead children fast enough. You were all rushing all over each other to blame Trump, to blame the Doge cuts, to blame anybody else, to blame climate change, except for it's weather. And weather happens. This is an area known for flash flooding. This is something that's happened before. We had to go back to the archives. This is July of 1987. In fact, William Shatner, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, was narrating a special talking about something similar that happened in the 1980s. You guys really want to blame climate change?
On Friday morning, July 17th, 1987, the small town of Comfort, Texas, became the scene of a heroic rescue and tragic loss. Much of the footage you will see was taped on that day by the banks of the Guadalupe River.
It was the day they were supposed to go home. The more than 300 children at the church camp were awakened early. The river was flooding. If they didn't leave soon, their buses might not be able to leave at all.
They come in there rushing us up and everything, telling us to get up, get packed and all this stuff, and everybody was asking why. They said we got to get out of here because the river was flowing over.
We started going around the corner. We would go down the hill, then the water started coming in the bus and stuff. We tried to back up, but then the bus got stuck, so they made all of us get out of the bus.
And that's whenever the first wave hit us and started scattering people to different trees.
People died in 1987 also. You didn't hear anybody blaming climate change. Why do they call it climate change? Remember in the 1970s, they used to say it was global cooling. We're all going to live in a giant ice box. Then it was global warming. And then because none of that stuff was actually happening, hey, let's just call it climate change so we're never, ever wrong. The media Such hypocrites. CNN, nobody should watch this garbage outlet, and I really wonder what their ratings would be if we didn't have TVs on in airports and doctors' waiting rooms. Dana Bash from CNN defended the Biden-Harris administration when there were massive flooding, and now is very, very quick to try and blame the Trump administration. Listen to the contrast. We've got the clips back to back.
The former president is falsely accusing federal relief agencies of maliciously withholding and misusing aid. Take a listen.
We give foreign countries hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're handing North Carolina $750. If you want a president who won't even try to save you when the floodwaters are rising, vote for Kamala.
What you just heard is not true. They're rumors and they're lies, and they are hurting the very people that thousands of FEMA emergency responders are trying to help. It's raw politics and dangerous politics. A lot of the people who are believing these lies are Trump voters. Why is he spreading misinformation in a crisis like that? And does that concern you about your fellow North Carolinians?
You have migrants being housed in luxury hotels in New York City. We have paid so much money from our tax dollars into the crisis that didn't need to happen. We could redirect money to help people immediately on the ground in North Carolina.
Laura, they're saying
Florida,
that they have
probably going to have a situation coming up in the next several days.
That's a separate tranche of money. That's a separate tranche of money. Just talking about the federal government and even the local government, 2 Texas National Weather Service offices involved in forecasting and warning about flooding on the Guadalupe River are missing some key staff members. A director of the NWS union told CNN that the Austin San Antonio office is missing a warning coordination meteorologist due to the Trump administration's buyouts. Do you have any indication whether those or other cuts helped play a role in the fact that the people in the flood zone were not prepared and certainly not evacuated?
You see her fishing for it, even though it's not accurate? She's fishing for something to validate her lie, and it's not true. But you see how quick she was to defend the Biden administration? You remember during Hurricane Katrina? Remember the complete failure of local and state responses? They literally had all the buses for evacuation flooded because they never used them. They were all flooded. They had been ignoring the problems with the levees for years. It was a colossal failure on every single level. Who gets the blame? George Bush. When it's a Republican who's the president, they're the ones who always get the blame for everything, including the local failures, even when they're on every single level. When it's the Democrat, the media does everything possible to try and protect the Democrat. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was calling out this nonsense in the press briefing room today.
Are there concerns within the White House or from the president himself over the cuts that happened under Musk while he was advising DOGE, including the National Weather Service?
I think I've already addressed that, Kristen, and what I can tell you is that these offices were fully staffed. The San Angelo office was fully staffed with 12 forecast meteorologists. There were no vacancies. The San Antonio office was operating with 11 forecasters. And as Brian said, the union themselves said that there was adequate staffing. So I think those words speak for themselves, and the numbers speak for themselves. This was a once-in-a-century flash flood, a tragic natural disaster, and the administration is doing all that we can on the ground to help these families during this time of need.
This was also something that happened in the middle of the night. How many people are paying attention to weather forecasts in the middle of the night? The kids were asleep in their bunks.
Well, the alerts imminently were sent out before the flood when people were sleeping because the flood hit in the very early hours of the morning. So people were sleeping in the middle of the night when this flood came. That was an act of God. It's not the administration's fault that the flood hit when it did. But there were early and consistent warnings. And again, the National Weather Service did its job. On July 2nd, there were initial notices of potential weather and flooding risks were issued. On July 3rd, escalating warnings throughout the day with a flood watch issued at 1:18 p.m. And then later, at 6:10 p.m. on July 3rd, the Weather Prediction Center warned of excessive rainfall and a high likelihood of flash flooding. At 6:22 p.m. July 3rd, National Weather Center issued a hydraulic warning, highlighting considerable flooding risks, including in Caryville County. And then there were the timely flash flood alerts at 11:41 p.m., 1:14 a.m., and then another flash flood emergency warning issued at 4:03 a.m. just before the flood hit. So those were all of the warnings that went out to the affected area and region.
And that's why the lamestream media outlets are backing off this particular narrative. Running with it in the first place was irresponsible. But now that they've been proven dead wrong, they're backing off and backing off, but the damage has already been done. People will believe this nonsense. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that over 90 people are dead, including a lot of girls who just went to a sleepaway camp. This flash flood was caused by complex meteorological forces involving remnants of a tropical storm, a stalling mid-level low, and a trough pulling in moisture from the Pacific, which dumped 120 billion gallons of rain over central Texas. This is a once-in-a-generation natural disaster. And blaming climate change? Did you blame it the last time there was something like this? Because we've shown how often this happens. And yet the first thing out of some people's mouth wasn't grief. It wasn't sympathy. It wasn't even, let's give a day for the bodies to cool. It was almost gleeful. It was almost celebratory. Because the victims were somebody they could blame on Donald Trump, because the victims were Christians. Oh, where was your God now? That kind of stuff. What if it had been Muslim kids? Where have been Muslim kids? Would MSNBC and CNN been going wall to wall on this, or would we be doing candlelight vigils? What if they were trans kids at a climate rally? You'd be having a whole bunch of GoFundMe links put up, and you'd be having the lamestream media doing wall-to-wall specials on it. The left has almost decided that a lot of these people deserved it. The next time they say tolerance or empathy or compassion or love is love or any of that nonsense, remind them how they felt about dead children. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It was almost gleeful how quickly they ran. See, we were right about Trump. We were right about Trump. You were wrong about everything. A tragedy shouldn't be political. It should be human. But we're up against people who have completely lost their souls. A movement that cheers for nature's wrath when it comes down hard on people they dislike. And some of them even think these children deserve to die. This is horrifying where our society has become and where a whole bunch of people in this country have completely lost their souls. Why? For the gods of climate change? For the gods of politics? This is soulless. And the people who treat a tragedy like this are absolute monsters. And nobody should give them any listening, viewership, any seriousness ever again. You want to be part of the show, you want to weigh in on this, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the King County Health, and I'm using air quotes, are probably fueling the drug crisis by themselves. We'll give you the details of what they're up to when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. By the way, it is rare, very, very rare that you see a post where every single comment is negative and disagreeing with the original post. Jay Inslee managed to do that with his post about climate change, blaming it for what happened in Texas. Really, really impressive. So he wasn't satisfied. And he continued posting, maybe hoping for a better reaction, like 3 or 4 more times. Jay Inslee is the most garbage person in Washington state. He is pond scum. I posted this to social media, and the Doge Washington account said, please don't insult pond scum, which has done more for the environment than Jay Inslee ever did. And then they posted the benefits of pond scum. Pond scum, which is algae, benefits include producing oxygen, absorbing CO2, supports aquatic food chains, potential biofuel sources, nutrient-rich fertilizer, and used in cosmetics or supplements. Everything there is more useful than Jay Inslee in any legislation that he passed. Meanwhile, switching gears over to the 4th of July. I love the 4th of July here in Seattle. This is the first year I've missed 4th of July locally, I think, in the 20-plus years since I've lived here. I love the fireworks. I love looking out over my deck and seeing the entire cityscape just have fireworks going off everywhere. So you can tell how seriously they take Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, who posted this on July 4th at 10 a.m. Wishing everyone a safe and joyous Independence Day. Please enjoy professional fireworks shows in Seattle and refrain from using personal fireworks, which are illegal and can cause dangerous fires. Let's celebrate safely with loved ones as we honor our nation's independence. So it's okay to shoot fireworks at police officers like Antifa does, because you never stop them. In fact, for the police department to not have acted when these lunatics from Antifa were attacking federal agents and other law enforcement like Seattle police officers with fireworks at the federal building downtown, and then you had Seattle Police Department stand down, that order must have come from you, or it came from the police chief, and you gave it to him. So let me just make sure I got this right. Attacking police officers with fireworks by Antifa, okay. Launching fireworks to celebrate the 4th of July, not okay. Just making sure I got our moral equivalency meters up right now. Just making sure that's basically what he's saying. Oh, and by the way, this is great. The lunatics have planned a Night of Rage rally for Seattle. That's right, my friends. The lunatics are planning this for July 17th, so get your fireworks ready for that one. And it's some new group called Nidal Seattle. You know it's just going to be the same lunatics you always see. This is the shtick they do. They create a new social media page, and then it goes dead afterwards, and then they create another, and it's always the exact same activists showing up with this. What are they mad about? U.S. bases out of our homelands. You know what's funny about this? These guys have no sense of history. It's the entire Middle East and Arabian Peninsula and Northern Africa. You guys do know how the Muslims got to all those places. It was through colonization. You do knew that. It was through invasion. So get them out of our homelands, plural. Typically you have a homeland and you go elsewhere from there. Get them out of our homelands. Bring pots, pans, noisemakers, and most importantly, your rage for Gaza. I noticed that they also have this thing written in Spanish. So whose homeland are we talking about here? What exactly are we talking about here? This is the radical left, the violent left, who are a death cult and celebrate children dying. This is who they are. There's no sugarcoating it anymore. This is who they are. Got some texts on our previous segment. Ari, don't worry, the Lord has a special place for the left. Climate change has nothing on that place, John in Auburn. No, but I do hear it's pretty hot over in that place. That's what I hear, right? Karen says, Inslee has no regard for human life. He didn't during COVID, and he doesn't now, especially since his wife works for Planned Parenthood. That's Karen in Phoenix. I didn't know his wife worked for Planned Parenthood, but guess what? I don't think anybody's working for Planned Parenthood right now since they lost all their funding from Trump, right? Am I right? Thank you very much for that one. All right, let's see what else we got here. Robin Lakewood says, Democratic media defends Democrats. 97% of journalists donate to Democrats, according to Ballotpedia. Yes, exactly right. This is the kind of stuff the Democrats do. They protect their own. Meanwhile, by the way, speaking of the violent Antifa types, how come the suspect, Jeremy Lawson, who they won't admit is the suspect, but we all know he's the suspect, hasn't been arrested yet? In fact, this guy, it's now been 3 weeks since Cam Higbee was assaulted by this guy? This guy is texting Cam Higbee so he can mess with his alleged victim. But we're not going to arrest this guy? Are you kidding me? According to the Center Square, this happened last week, 16 days after a brutal attack on an independent journalist as he was covering anti-ICE protests in Seattle. The alleged suspect has still not been arrested. The attack was captured on video. Meanwhile, over the weekend, the victim, Cam Higbee, was contacted via text message by the alleged attacker, Jeremy Lawson. He said, "Hey, are you okay?" Higbee responded, asking who was messaging him, and the text back said, "Jeremy Lawson." Higbee texted back to say, "Do not contact me again unless it's a confession." Lawson responded that he wouldn't rest until justice was served. Yes, him and OJ. Him and OJ working together to find the real people who did it. They're going to write books that say, "If I did it," right? That's what we're going to do here? Are you kidding me? Why has this guy not been arrested yet? I have sent multiple requests for comment over to the King County prosecutors, and they say Seattle police has to arrest the guy. We're doing everything we can, but they haven't arrested the guy yet. Seattle Police Department has all of a sudden forgotten how to respond to requests for comment. Why do you think that is? Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, are you on Team Musk for the America Party, or are you on Team Trump for MAGA/Republicans? This little internal civil war, is it good or bad for the GOP? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. This trip to Vegas, we're hanging out the Mandalay Bay, and I'm wearing a shirt, not because I'm worried about sunburn, but because, let's just say I've let myself go a little bit, and my physique doesn't look the way it used to, so for everybody's sake, I think that's a better way to go, that I wear a shirt in the pool. Don't worry, it's one of those, water shirts. It's meant for that. It's not like wearing some T-shirt that's just going to cling to all the wrong places.
Is that one of those things that kind of looks like a wetsuit sort of situation?
Yeah,
almost?
so they're technically called rash guards.
Yeah, I was going to say rash guard. Yeah.
What they are for is when you're wearing water skiing vests, that kind of thing. They rub, and it stops you from getting a rash. Now, I used to use it for that purpose. Now I have a different purpose I use them for.
It covers up and it also sucks in.
Exactly right. That's kind of what these things do. So still looking at the pictures, I go, ooh, I am not 22 anymore. I will just say that looking at these pictures. Now, apparently, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, didn't like the way he looked in pictures over the weekend. He's got a picture of him looking like he just went for a jog in a little tracksuit kind of deal. Looks very slick, I have to say. He looks really good. And then I realize he's leaning on a bench, and the bench looks like it has become malformed. So wait a minute. Hang on a second. I'm just looking at okay, as a guy who wishes he could do this stuff without people figuring out what he looks like, I'm just looking at the bench. The bench looks like the slats of the bench are being warped by heat. And they're starting to get wavy and moving. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Was there a little AI action here? Or did he think it was funny because this bench was warped to just lean into it? Now, I look for the other telltale signs of AI. His shadow looks good. This looks like it was airbrushed a little stuff was done. Hakeem, dude, age gracefully like the rest of us. Get yourself a rash guard. Just wear it under your jogging suit or something else, because we're not falling for the AI. It doesn't look like the bench bent or anything. It looks like something computerized was clearly used on this image.
That's a dangerous game to play, young Zach, or producer Zach, I should say now.
Yes.
He does a little tweaking for some of the pictures for us in the office.
Sure.
And one time I told him, hey, can you shave a couple of pounds off me for the picture? And things get real weird real quick.
Yeah, they do.
You start stretching and squeezing, and all sorts of things start not looking right.
By the way, so I've noticed my age is getting up there, but when I was younger, I looked like an anime character. I looked like Speed Racer. And it was very easy to do caricatures of me. When you go to bar mitzvahs or whatever it was, I was pretty easy to draw. Now, I notice that AI can't really make me. And it's always kind of deformed. So when I'm like, hey, draw a cartoon of me or whatever, because I'm trying to make a political cartoon or something, it is twisted what it looks like. And it's not even me. It just can't do me for some reason. It's really weird looking. It's very strange.
Is there not enough photos of you to grab?
No.
In the internet?
I give it the photos sometimes, and it's this weird warped version. I'm like, I'm not Alex Jones. What are you doing to me? It's not good. Anyway, switching gears, the real question now, speaking of AI and stuff, is are you on Team Musk? Or are you on Team Trump? Elon Musk is starting a new political party, he says, called the America Party, which is going to be socially liberal but fiscally conservative, and conservative when it comes to foreign policy. We have the libertarians already. They're not doing that well. But here's something else. Do you remember the last time a billionaire who had a company based in Texas decided to mess around in the elections? What happened there? You might remember this guy. If you don't remember him specifically, you might remember the SNL skits that made fun of him nonstop. Remember a guy named Ross Perot who ran for U.S. president twice in 1992 and 1996 as a third-party candidate, who, by the way, is likely part of the reason why George H. Bush lost to Bill Clinton, and you got Bill Clinton for not one, but 2 terms. Ross Perot was a billionaire businessman from Texas who capitalized on public frustration with 2 major parties. President George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. His campaign focused on reducing the federal deficit, opposing trade deals like NAFTA, and promoting economic nationalism. He used his personal wealth to fund a grassroots campaign, relying on infomercials and talk show appearances rather than traditional ads. He emphasized straight talk, using charts and graphs to explain complex issues like the national debt. Does any of this sound familiar? He won 18.9% of the popular vote about 19.7 million votes, the strongest third-party performance since Theodore Roosevelt in 1912. By the way, I was putting some of this information into Grok, and I asked Grok if a third-party run would hurt the Republicans or the Democrats more. And you know what Grok, Elon Musk's own AI, told me? It would hurt the Republican Party more. So I want to know which side you're on. I want to know if you've chosen to side. Maybe you haven't yet. Give us a call or a text. Let us know if you're on, what is it, Team, I don't want to say Team America, because that makes it sound like the other way, you're against America. But are you on Team Musk or are you on Team Trump? Are you with the Republican Party, MAGA? Are you with the America Party? Because I think this thing, all it's going to do is help more Democrats get elected. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, my man crush, Ron DeSantis, actually had a good halfway point rather than tearing the whole Republican Party apart.
And the problem is when you do another party, especially if you're running on some of the issues that he talks about, that would end up, if he funds Senate candidates and House candidates in competitive races, that would likely end up meaning the Democrats would win all the competitive Senate and House races. And so, look, I'm a Republican. I don't want to see that happen. I think if you want to, get involved and hold accountable, we do have a problem in the Republican Party with these D.C. congressmen. They always run saying there's out of control spending and they're going to spend less, and they never do it. And so there's a gap between the campaign rhetoric and then the performance. Elon was doing Doge, and a lot of Congress didn't want anything to do with actually adopting the Doge cuts, just like they haven't wanted to adopt the Trump executive orders on immigration and all these other things, which I think you have to adopt in law if you want them to have staying power. So I think there is a lot of frustration with the gap between the rhetoric in their district and the performance once they get into D.C. But the way you do that is expose that in a primary and show that there's another way forward. Honestly, if you're concerned about the debt, I wouldn't even worry about that, because I don't think just electing a few better people is going to change the trajectory. We need the incentives in Washington are going to lead to these outcomes, really regardless of the outcome of elections at this point. So you need to do a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and you can do that through the states. You can do it through Article 5. We've got 28 states that have approved this. There's another 4 or 5 that are on the docket. Once you hit 34, then you write an amendment, and then the states are able to ratify that. You need 3/4. If Elon wanted to weigh in on that and work on those state he would have a monumental impact on doing this. And we also need term limits for members of Congress. And so you can do both of those things.
He is exactly right. That's why I love Ron DeSantis, because he knows how the government actually works. Different than the rhetoric. He knows what you can actually do to fix these things. Ron DeSantis is 1,000% correct. Balanced budget amendment, term limits. Boom. There you go. When we come back, my friends, your calls, your texts. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on this Team Musk versus Team Trump. We'll take your calls and texts when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4 o'clock is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash with KVI. That's right, my friends. At 4 o'clock, we'll give you all the details on how you can win $3,000 cash or take a fabulous trip, and I'll tell you where we're going this week at 4 o'clock. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. You guys are mean. Mean, I tell you. You know, I give nothing but love to you guys, and you guys are all recommending, like, different weight loss plans. I know you're trying to be helpful, but the meanest one here is from Rob in Lakewood. Didn't John Carlson have a weight loss company that he endorsed? I know you're not trying to be mean. I know you're all trying to be helpful. It just feels hurtful. It feels a little hurtful.
That's the danger about complaining about things when you're on the radio and people are like, hey, wait a minute. You play commercials that'll fix that problem all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then when they call out somebody who endorses a weight loss product and then doesn't look like they endorse a weight loss product, if you know what I'm saying. Meanwhile, over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, so this one here from Lee says Ron DeSantis makes an awful lot of sense. Sorry, can't read straight today. I voted for Ross Perot in 92, as did 20% of other voters. All stay in the Republican Party. Right here, this is from John in Lakewood. Good DeSantis comment. Exactly right. Pam says out here from Lake Stevens, she says, I agree with what DeSantis just said. Otherwise, voters are splintered in multiple directions. Yeah, see, a lot of you are also choosing Team Trump in this fun. And I wonder if anybody's actually choosing Team Musk. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Rob in Mount Vernon. Rob, what's going on, man?
I turned 18 in 1972, and I voted Republican the whole way down. And I remember the Libertarian Party with Perot and all that. I should say I consider myself to be a libertarian, but with conservative values and conservative voting spectrum. And every Democrat that's ever been in office has completely done everything they can to bring our country down. All anyone has to really focus and remember on, the D in Democrat stands for destruction. So what more do you need to know?
Exactly. Are you convinced also, Rob, that if you do more of these third parties or whatever, it's just going to take votes away from the Republicans?
Absolutely, and I should back up one moment here. The D in DeSantis stands for the most common sense speaking individual out there. So I really hope Musk gets his act together. I don't know if it's just, out of spite that he's doing it. I kind of think so. But he's a pretty smart guy, but he's also got some kind of marbles or something.
Well, think about this also. It's that, look, you and I want the budget cut. We do. But the majority of the American people don't. Now, can you tell them what to do and then hope that they like you afterwards? Sure. But at the same time, they usually reject it in the polls. And here's the other thing. All the Doge cuts, I agree with Elon Musk. We should be doing all of them. However, let's not forget, he's probably also mad about those EV subsidies going away, and he's probably also mad that Trump didn't pick his guy to run the spaceship program. So you put all those things together, it seems like a lot of spite. Rob, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Mike in Everett. Mike, what's going on?
Well, first, to answer your question, I'm a libertarian, conservative, traditionalist, and I'm for Team Trump.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of people. In fact, I don't have anybody here on the text line who's for Team Musk. I got this one here from John in Auburn. He says, Ari, Trump and Elon need to kiss and make up. The utter chaos they caused by being together was bonkers crazy for the leftists. I think I would agree with that. Wouldn't you, Mike?
I would, but that's not the reason I called in.
Yeah, what's going on, man?
I called in to point out that you actually have made a mistake, and I can explain it to you very quickly.
Sure, what's up?
The left actually has at least the slightest bit of merit about why it's okay to shoot fireworks at police officers, but it's not okay for the rest of us to set them off on the 4th of July.
What's that?
There's not that many people actually doing that. It's the same ones. They're just busting them around the country. So if you take the total amount of output of hot gases and pollution It's not a very large amount because there's not that many of them. Where just in Western Washington, there's got to be over 100,000 proud Americans wanting to set off fireworks on the 4th of July. Of our founding fathers, several of them, specifically Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin, all were quoted saying a similar thing, that after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, on this day in the future, they will celebrate it with fireworks.
Yeah, and think about this also. Remember when Gavin Newsom said no fireworks in Los Angeles during COVID? And then there's that video of the plane landing at LAX and there's fireworks as far as the eye can see. Mike, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Plus, Bob Ferguson's new hate crime hotline. Is it working yet? Wasn't working last week and they said it was. We'll check in. We'll give it a call when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Bob Ferguson's new hate crimes hotline. It's live, or is it? We'll keep checking for you. But before we get to any of that, my friends, you work hard. You may need a getaway, or perhaps some financial relief. We've got you covered with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash, sponsored by our friends over at Budget Tank Removals. This week, you can get away to Portugal with tram rides through Lisbon, castles in Sintra, and wine by the sea, or have a chance at $3,000 of cold, hard cash. Now, when I give you the word, you text the word. You do not DM me the word on any of my social media platforms. Just the word, not your name, not the address, not the phone number. We're really good at finding people. How do you think we expose all those Hamasniks? You do not need to give us any personal information until we ask for it. And once you do, we'll get you in the daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and you could win the trip or keep the cash with KVI. Today's keyword is, ironically, cash, as in you could win cash money, as in Johnny Cash, spelled C-A-S-H. Text the word cash to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Only text the word once. And remember, you have until 5 o'clock to enter. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil. Don't forget to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and so much more. Good luck, my friends. Remember to enter the keyword cash at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on, man?
What's up is, this America Party, did you know that Elon Musk, Redmond President Vanessa Kritzer, loves electric cars, grabbing guns, and balanced budgets and public safety? And I really think since Elon Musk technically cannot run for president because he's an immigrant and a great American himself, maybe he should call Redmond and hire their great president, their hero president, who threw out Alex Zimmerman, the Nazi, for 6 months.
All right, let's not call people names on the show, Joe. You're doing so well there. Let's not call people names. But here's the thing about Musk. I don't want my tax dollars going to other people's toys. Look, I have said before, I have been converted over. I'm not giving up my Charger, but I understand why people love the EVs. Those suckers are fast. My friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram hooked me up with a Jeep Rubicon, which I have been absolutely loving. I really want to take the doors and the roof off and everything else and enjoy the summer and be part of Jeep culture. But that doesn't mean anybody else should pay for the toys that I have. For example, did the government pay for gas stations when we were wheeling out cars and moving away from the horse and buggy? No, they weren't. If people want that stuff, they can pay for that stuff. And here's something else. The more people want this stuff, the lower in price it will go. These prices are artificially high because the government keeps saying, here, have a rebate. And the car companies go, well, let's jack our prices up because now you have the money for the rebate.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay, you brought me around to end the stupid rebates.
Okay.
Okay, you won that argument. But, I just think Jewish Democrats and supporters of Jews don't have a political home anymore when, the response to anti-Semitism has been so weak.
Wait a second. What do you mean they don't have a political home anymore? Donald Trump is the most pro-Jewish president of my lifetime, more so than Ronald Reagan or any of the Bushes. So how can you say they don't have a political home anymore? The Democrats don't like Jews. The Republicans like Jews. Literally, I was on the floor of the RNC last summer, when they had a whole Israel night.
Okay. I hear what you're saying there, but a lot of my pals aren't ready to join MAGA, and the American Party could be a good home for them, because after all, American Party wants to have gun control, which I do somewhat support, and America Party, it's just common sense. And I really think we need to have some political choices that are not people
I
over
agree with
70
you, but
years
here's
old.
the thing, Joe. It's just going to elect more psychos on the left. Think about it this way. If you have Adam Smith running against Kashama Sawant, and all of a sudden you have the America Party come in and go with somebody else, we got enough problems where there's going to be some Republican in that race who has no chance of winning whatsoever. And I'm not saying Adam Smith is the best option, but now you're going to be taking more and more votes away from Smith, and guess who you get elected instead?
That's deplorable.
Yes, and that's the
I can't
problem.
help it. I can't help it.
That's the
can't help it.
problem,
I'm
Joe.
sorry.
Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, over the weekend, people started looking for Travis Decker, the father who's accused of killing his 3 daughters over in Idaho in Sawtooth National Forest. Does this sound like a legit sighting to you? I saw this over the weekend, and I saw that there's a tip of a guy matching Decker's description. That's a long way to go. And if you were out of here, why would you hide in a forest? Why wouldn't you go somewhere else where they're not looking for you? Why wouldn't you get in a car and just drive across the country? I don't know, man. I'm not sure this is a legit sighting. Tell me what you think. Give us a call or a text. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, while it's good that people are calling in, you see something, you say something, we really don't like Bob Ferguson's hate crimes hotline. Now, on Thursday, our last day before the long weekend, we called Bob Ferguson's hate crime and bias hotline. Now, we know the purpose of this hotline is really just to report conservatives, to report things that trigger you. Why? So they can keep a log of, look how much hate crimes have gone up by this percentage. You need to give us money to stop them. Well, on Thursday, I filed a report because the online system works perfectly fine. And I said, hey, wait a second, Antifa, they actually discriminated against a conservative journalist when they attacked Cam Higbee, when they attacked ICE. So I filed a complaint against the Antifa types. And yet I haven't heard back from this agency at all. Okay, it's a 4-day weekend, but I expected to hear back today. Nothing. Now, I did dial that number with you guys. You might remember we did this on the show on Thursday. And they said it was working. They said it was live, but then we got this weird error message. Hang on, let's try this one more time and see what happens.
You have reached the voicemail intake line for the Washington State Hate Crimes and Bias Incidents Hotline, where you can report hate and get support. We help connect people who have witnessed or experienced hate crimes or bias incidents in Washington State to resources and help. The hotline goes live in King, Clark, and Spokane counties on July 1st, 2025. We are not currently accepting calls. Please call us back on July 1st. Thank you.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Yeah, it's still playing that auto message. So wait a second. Hang on. Let me check something here. What's today's date? Well, let's see. The 4th of July was Friday. That means that Saturday was the 5th. Yesterday was the 6th. Today's the 7th. And the thing still doesn't work right. Government efficiency at its finest. Now, the website still works, so you can go and report whatever on the left triggers you, which I think would be a lot of fun. Just keep filing reports every single day. I know that I'm doing that, but it seems like the hotline itself doesn't actually work. And while everybody's wasting time reporting their neighbors for whatever microaggressions there are, they're not actually reporting real crimes. You know who's not doing any real reporting at all? The Seattle Times. So, here's the headline. Ferguson denies pardon for Washington immigrant facing deportation to South Sudan. Now, if you just saw that headline, you would say, oh my God, Bob Ferguson, he's becoming a member of MAGA. He's not saving this poor immigrant who's facing deportation from the evil Donald Trump to South Sudan. Let's read the article a little bit here. Ready? Governor Bob Ferguson declined to grant a pardon to a Vietnamese national who grew up in Tacoma, likely clearing the way for his deportation to South Sudan. No, that's horrible. This person's only crime was growing up in Tacoma. And we know it don't smell too good there sometimes, but that's still not a crime. The denial of Tuan Than Phan's pardon application comes as the U.S. Supreme Court clarified in a ruling Thursday the federal government can deport immigrants of so-called third countries, places that their country of origin and where they have no connections, while legal challenges in a lower court proceed. Okay, so who is this guy? You've gone through 2 paragraphs so far. Who is this guy exactly? Who is this poor illegal immigrant who's getting deported to Sudan, who's from Vietnam? Phan was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents immediately after he was released from state prison in March after completing a 25-year sentence for first-degree murder and second-degree assault. So, Seattle Times, really? This is the guy you want to run cover for. It was bad enough last week. You were running cover for the illegal alien who killed Trooper Gad because the crazy lunatic that he was, Raul Benitez Santana, was driving at over 107 miles an hour while drunk and high in the middle of the night on the shoulder and plowed into Trooper Gad. Now you're literally going to the mat for a murderer? Wait a second. Let me just go down a little bit here. Without a full and unconditional pardon for Phan, which would have allowed him to eventually reinstate his lawful permanent residence status, his deportation to South Sudan appears likely. Are you literally advocating for Bob Ferguson? Bob Ferguson's not even the bad guy here. I can't even fault Bob Ferguson for his story. I am defending Bob Ferguson against the Seattle Times because they have gone off the rails. They have lost the plot. You want a full and unconditional pardon for a guy who killed somebody and spent 25 years in jail? Exactly. I can't believe I'm defending this guy. I can't. Unbelievable. So I just want to make sure I got this right. The Seattle Times wants us to feel bad for the illegal immigrant murderer. Just making sure I got that. Who served 25 years. You know what my first question is? Why is he out of jail? He killed somebody. Why does he get another chance at life? Oh, the Seattle Times just goes, oh, he would be a great contributing member to our society. Really? What does he bring to the table? Really? What does this guy, what's his name again? Tuan Than Phan. Hang on. Do they ever actually get to... Oh, hang on. What did he actually do here? How many paragraphs do I need to go down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8th paragraph. We finally hear what he did. Here we go. Mr. Phan was convicted on very serious charges, killing one innocent teenage victim and injuring another one when he fired a gun multiple times into a crowded area. Wait, what? So this is the guy you want to keep in America. Just making sure I got that right. This is the guy you want to save. This is the guy you want to keep here. Ugh, give me a break. Yeah, only in Washington. The rest of America has kind of gotten a little bit more sane. Meanwhile, got this story here, a little justice coming, but 4 years too late. According to the Post-Millennial, a violent male inmate who identified as a female and was housed in a Washington women's prison has been quietly transferred back to a men's facility 4 years after being accused of sexually assaulting his female cellmate and harassing other incarcerated women. We have previously spoken about Christopher Scott Williams, a 6'4" biological male inmate who was moved out of the Washington Correction Center for Women in June after years of controversy and allegations of abuse. According to Town Hall, Williams, who has a long criminal history, including convictions for child rape and brutal domestic assault, has been transferred to the women's prison in 2021 under the Washington Department of Corrections gender inclusion policy, which was implemented in 2020 by, guess who? That's right, Democrat Governor Jay Inslee, and allowed inmates to be housed according to their gender identity rather than biological sex. His transfer came despite Williams' history of violence against women, but after allegedly assaulting a corrections officer while in a men's prison, he was granted a transfer to the women's facility. Hang on. So you assaulted a prison guard in the men's facility, so they transfer you to the women's facility? Government isn't the solution, my friends. Government is the problem. He went on to share a cell with Mozzie Clark Sanchez, a female inmate and survivor of childhood sexual abuse. So you put a 6'4" male sex offender and assault guy who assaulted a prison guard in with a female inmate in a locked cage because he identifies as female. You're all with me on this so far. Okay. Clark Sanchez, who has now been released from prison, has filed a federal lawsuit alleging that Williams repeatedly harassed, sexually assaulted, and intimidated her while they were cellmates. I am not reading to you what this guy did sexually. It is too graphic. After she filed a complaint under the Federal Prison Rape Elimination Act, Williams was removed from the cell, but not the facility. He allegedly continued to stalk and intimidate her around the prison yard. The lawsuit also claims that the staff at this female facility were aware of the behavior towards other female inmates and failed to act. So last month, he is finally transferred back to a male facility. But this is after 4 years of doing whatever he did to the women's facility? Okay, hang on. I need my little intersectional scale here. I want to make sure I got this right. So let's see who ranks higher for the left in intersectional. Well, they say believe all women, so I assume women are at the top. Sanchez, so she sounds like a woman of color, so she should be higher at the top. Nope. Here comes the 6'4" dude who's a sex offender, rapist, assault guy, and he ranks higher than the woman of color? Just making sure I got, wait, didn't you guys want to abolish all prisons? But no, you keep the woman of color there to be assaulted by a male? This is the insanity on the left. This is absolutely crazy, by the way, guys, because you think he's the only one? We know that in the prison system, going back to 2023, which is the last time I have numbers for, there were dozens of male inmates in the women's prisons. How many other women are quietly suffering because of Jay Inslee's insane gender inclusion policy where it goes by however you identify? Well, gee, if there's some guy who's going to be in prison for the rest of his life, of course he's going to identify as a woman because then he gets over to the women's prison and he gets some entertainment. Are you guys nuts? Do you realize not just how exposed you have left the women, but the lawsuits you have opened yourselves up to? Oh, right. They don't. Why would they care? It's not their money. It's our money. You know, you want to fix this insanity? Make it that the politicians who enact these policies are personally liable when they do dumb things like this, and you might actually see some changes eventually. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, crazy stuff happening as ICE agents are being targeted by a sniper. And assaults on ICE agents are up over 700%. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4:45 is our Real Deal giveaway. That's right. Mike, Zach, and I are going to be reviewing the latest Jurassic Park movie, Rebirth, Jurassic World Rebirth, I should say, and giving away fantabulous prizes. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Why are we playing our esteemed political correspondent, Vanilla Ice, at the beginning of this segment? Because crazy things are happening with ICE agents right now. According to Fox News, an active shooter armed with tactical gear and a rifle opened fire upon Border Patrol agents as they arrived at a Border Patrol annex facility in McAllen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley on Monday. Agents and local police returned fire and killed the gunman. No federal agents were hit. But one McAllen police officer was struck. Law enforcement sources say the officer is in stable condition. Law enforcement believes the attack was a purposeful ambush targeting Border Patrol officials. Now, we don't know a lot about the suspect yet, but when you keep saying that these guys are Nazis and calling for violence against them, you're shocked when it actually happens? Here's Tom Hoffman telling Fox News how bad things have become for ICE agents.
Who were these suspects who were fired, who actually fired the shots and were later arrested? Who were they, Tom?
Look, they're your typical protesters that go from protesters to criminals. The attack on ICE officers, you've covered it many times, is up nearly 700% now. We were talking 500% a couple weeks ago, so it continues. The rhetoric against the men and women of ICE is skyrocketing, especially by members of Congress. We have senators, we have Congress people that compare ICE to the Nazis, compare ICE to racists, and it just continues. So the public thinks, well, if a member of Congress can attack ICE, why can't we? So the rhetoric has to stop. Or it's a matter of time for someone, one of the ICE officers goes down or a criminal goes down. But we already see an officer go down.
To be clear, so these were American citizens? These weren't illegals who opened fire?
No. As far as the investigation, I want to get ahead of the local investigation on this, but they appear to be agitators, people that are protesting ICE operations, damaging ICE property, want to attack ICE officers.
Whoa. Does that mean it was Antifa? Does that mean it was leftist activists? Because people like Pramila Jayapal are encouraging this insanity. In fact, if you remember, Pramila Jayapal is having her resistance training sessions around the country. So you have these lunatics down in Portland who it's now been a month. It's been a month where Katie Daviscourt has been covering these lunatic wackos down in Portland who every single night are attacking ICE agents and attacking the ICE facility. Why isn't Portland police doing anything about it? Why isn't the mayor saying anything? Why isn't the governor sending in the National Guard? More and more federal charges are piling up because the feds are doing everything they can, but night after night after night. And guess what? This building is in the middle of a residential area. You've got people living in apartment buildings nearby, elderly people living in apartment buildings nearby who now have to deal with tear gas all the time because of these lunatic protesters. And today, you're telling me that one of these agitator types was likely the one who opened fire on ICE agents? If you tell everybody, if you keep telling them everybody's a Nazi who you disagree with, you're shocked when something like this happens? According to the post-millennial, Democratic lawmakers have said their voters are really displeased with them over their failure to prevent President Donald Trump and other Republicans from enacting their agenda. These voters are so mad that they could resort to violence. This is according to Democrat politicians. Axios has some of these statements up. Axios is most definitely not my little black book of the right-wing media cabal. They said they spoke to more than 24 House Democrats to gauge the temperature of the Democrat and leftist base. People apparently are mad, so mad that they could take action into their own hands. One lawmaker told Axios, "What I've seen is a demand we get ourselves arrested intentionally or allow ourselves to become the victims of violence. And a lot of that is coming from the economically very secure white people." Oh, so what you're saying is the college elite types are saying we need to get ourselves arrested, and that's going to change things? This is insane. Another one told Axios that I was actually in a meeting, and when they light a fire, my thought is to grab an extinguisher, going to say that someone at the table said, "Have you tried gasoline?" Our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. that there needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public. Another said their constituents were done with civility because it isn't working. That lawmaker reported that their constituents said to prepare for violence to fight to protect our democracy. Another Democrat said, people online have sent me some crazy, I'm just going to say stuff. Told me to storm the White House and stuff like that. There's always people on the internet saying crazy things. Yes. And then they usually end to crazy violence. You think this is going to stop ICE? Here's Tom Homan.
Zoran Mondani, the likely next mayor of New York City, has promised not to cooperate with you or with ICE or with deportations of any kind. Do you have a plan? Is there a plan to work around that? How are you going to handle it?
Feel like I'm at, we're going to be in New York City, and President Trump said it 2 weeks ago. We're going to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities. Why? Not because we're a blue city or blue state, because we know that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats and national security threats to the streets every day because they don't honor our detainees. We know that. We don't have that problem like in Florida, where every sheriff in the state's working with us. So where we're going to send our assets, we're going to send them where the problem is. Sanctuary cities. So I've said it before, we'll flood the zone with sanctuary cities.
Think about that. If you're an illegal immigrant, are you going to go hide in a red city or a red state? No, they're going to get you in a red city or a red state. So you're going to go the blue cities and blue states. And by the way, the Democrats are making this worse for the illegal aliens they claim to represent, even though none of them pay their salaries and none of them elected them to public office. Because what's happening is every time ICE has to go into a city or into a neighborhood or into a building or into a house, they arrest everybody who's an illegal immigrant who's in that family. So, wait a minute. Also, a family's choosing to be deported together to follow their criminal, whoever it is. If you just take the person out of custody and hand them over to the authorities, their family will likely remain in the U.S. But this way, you're making things worse for everyone. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, our friend Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center joins us to weigh in on Jay Inslee blaming climate change for the disastrous flooding in Texas. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I hear good things about that Ari Hoffman guy. Welcome back to the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We're going to have that interview with Todd Myers coming up at the top of the hour. Right now we go to the Warrior Injury Law text line. And we have this one. This is from Eben and Bonnie Lake weighing in on the story we did with the 6'4" male who identifies as trans in the women's prison finally getting moved out. Ari, people that identify he, she, they, them, or whatever have been assigned at birth. They have this stuff in prison. If they want to pretend they're a woman there, that's fine, though very ill-advised, unless, well, you know what, I'm not going to read the rest of this, but basically what they're saying is that if somebody did something to these people because they're attacking women, they'd understand where they're coming from. Because here's the thing, guys, 4 years abusing a woman in a women's prison. 4 years. And the agencies that are supposed to say, believe all women, protect all women, did absolutely nothing to help this person. And now they're facing lawsuits, and this poor woman had this awful stuff happen to her because she was locked in a cage with this crazy person. Meanwhile, I got this one from Michael in Camino Island. When is ICE going to concentrate on Seattle? 800,000 people living in Seattle. How many are U.S. citizens? Well, what did Tom Homan literally just say? Tom Homan literally just said that what they are going to do is go after the sanctuary states, the sanctuary cities. Hey, by the way, why was Antifa so mad up here? And they failed. Why were they so mad up here? Because ICE was operating up here. ICE is operating up here, and you're only going to see more of that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, as Tom Homan mentioned before, Zoran Mamdani doesn't want to work with ICE, refuses to work with ICE, and instead, what does he want? He wants illegal immigrants as far as the eye could see in New York City. How'd that work out for the Roosevelt Hotel? How'd that work out for Times Square? How'd that work out for all the crime, the people assaulting police officers? But over the weekend, this was kind of funny. On Thursday night, I think the story broke from the New York Times. I was shocked. From the New York Times, Zoran Mamdani, Democratic nominee for mayor from New York City, identified as black or African American on his 2009 Columbia University application and Asian. Okay, I'm looking at this guy for a second. He identified as black or Asian, so he's Blasian. He identified as that on his application. Have you seen this guy? First of all, his family's Indian. They moved to Uganda, and then they moved to the U.S. So what would happen if I did that? What would happen? Rachel Dolezal was running the Washington NAACP, and she was a white girl who identified as black. And what happened to her? Right, probably haven't heard from her in a really, really, really long time. So now he identifies as black or African American. He is neither. And he identifies as Asian. He says that most accurately described him on the checkbox. Okay, time out for a second. You're applying to Columbia, which is still going off of affirmative action in 2009. His father is a hardcore liberal progressive professor at Columbia. You identify as black and Asian and you still don't get in? Do they even still do interviews at Columbia? Was it they show up and they go, hey, I'm looking at this guy and you don't look black or Asian to me. How bad were your SAT scores? How bad were your grades that even when you check all the intersectional boxes and have a father who works there as one of the craziest professors, you can't get into Columbia? That's the first question I have about this. Second, the New York Times is doing this story? Wait. Hang on. Does that mean the New York Times really hates Zoran Mamdani as much as the rest of us? Sounds like that to me. So he checked those boxes. All right, let's take me for a minute. Does white describe me? I don't know. Jewish people are a whole bunch of things. I kind of click other from time to time just for fun, or I prefer not to answer from time to time. I don't want to be one of your statistics. Don't put me in a box. Don't you try to describe me. But you could have checked other. It was an option there. You could have done that and actually written what you wanted to be, but no, you decided to lie. Now he told the Times that he identifies as an American who was born in Africa. Well, that's not true either. You're Indian. You're literally Indian. You lived in Uganda for a little while before you came to America. And this guy who is claiming to be such a victim. His mom's a Hollywood director. His dad's a college professor, probably making in excess of six figures. What a privileged lifestyle. But he needs to check the intersectional boxes. Crazy, crazy stuff. When we come back, my friends, your chance to win fantabulous prizes as Mike, Zach, and I review the latest Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic World Rebirth. We'll give you all the details, plus your chance to win those fantabulous prizes when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Get that lady some throat lozenges also. It's like, I don't know if she's just smoking a pack a day. Scarlett, I mean, she sounds like Anthony Fauci, actually. Actually, we need to get the dinosaur egg. Well, how can't you? Why do you have to get it for? Because the Triceratops or pterodactyl is like the size of an F-16. She's got smoker
So
cough.
what you're
It's
saying
so
is
bad.
what you're saying is they have to get all the stuff from the dino DNA because then they're protected. Is that what you're
They have
saying?
they have a little baby Yoda dinosaur, for the kids.
Yeah, for the kids. Sounds like this whole movie is not for
Does
anybody.
it save the day? No.
It's a mess, man. But basically, though, if you are looking for a movie to watch, and you haven't seen F1 yet, it's fine. And where Zach and I are going to part ways is like, I'm not going to tell people to not watch this. I don't like it, but we might have to ask my buddy Hank Williams Jr. here. It's like,
well, I'm glad you don't, brother, because a lot of people do.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at the tomato meter. It's got 51% from critics, but then it's got a 73% popcorn score.
Yeah.
Which is shocking to me based on all this.
I think that fans of this franchise will like the direction this goes because it has no nostalgia to the previous ones. It's a mostly new cast and new stories and isn't relying on the other stuff like the previous couple movies. And I like that it's kind of intentionally small. It's just like we have to survive a night on a scary island with mutant dinosaurs.
Kind of like what we liked about Ballerina.
Yeah.
It extends the franchise. It doesn't get too in the weeds. If you haven't seen the others, like I hadn't, that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, it's delightfully self-contained. It gives you enough to where you can just go. But yeah, fans of the theme park rides are going to like this. There are probably elements of this movie that will end up in theme park rides.
Now I'm kind of curious about it. Jurassic World Rebirth is in theaters now. Thank you, Mike and Zach. And before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes today, we are giving away four Fandango passes to see the aforementioned F1 starring Brad Pitt. You want to win these fantabulous prizes, be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 to win the tickets to F1. When we come back, Jay Inslee gets himself in a lot of trouble by talking about climate change when it comes to the deaths in Texas. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Congratulations to Bonnie in Renton. You are the proud winner of 4 Fandango passes to F1. Your next chance to win is coming up at 5:45 during our Good News giveaway. But before we get to any of that, time for another daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
My friends, over the weekend, this tragedy unfolding in Texas with this massive, massive flash flooding that came by where the river went up 26 feet in 45 minutes. There's no way to be prepared for something like that, even though we know that the various government weather agencies did their jobs and warned everybody. But as somebody who ran camps for years, I could tell you you're not really paying attention to weather updates when you're busy dealing with a whole bunch of kids. Yet that hasn't stopped the far left from claiming everything's about climate insanity. The worst offender in our area is actually Governor Jay Inslee, former Governor Jay Inslee, who's been on a posting binge since this tragedy unfolded and seems to get his kicks by standing on the bodies of dead children, proving that he has no soul whatsoever. More interestingly enough is the climate avenger himself, Jay Inslee, never hit a single climate goal he set out for himself. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, author of Time to Think Small, advocate of environmental innovation, vice president of research for the Washington Policy Center, Mr. Todd Myers. Thanks so much for being back with us today, my friend.
Yeah, always nice to chat with you.
I saw this over the weekend when Jay Inslee posted, and I said, for sure, Todd is going to have a response to this because you are the best at calling out this climate change craziness. So when you saw Jay Inslee posted something insane like that, what was your first thought?
Well, this is typical Jay, right? He doesn't Jay covers all of his failures as a governor, and frankly, sometimes as a human being, with, really ugly political rhetoric. That's how he got where he was, is that he was just the most partisan, most political, candidate, and got the support of others who were partisan and political. So when there's an opportunity to, use really ugly events, really awful events, and turn it into a partisan issue, I knew that he would do it, and it was right up his alley. But it's what he always does, and so it didn't surprise me, even, I think, as sort of disgusting as it is.
So let's talk about things we have covered in the past. We had you on the show when he was governor, especially after he was governor, and we kept hearing about all this climate change insanity. He laid out a whole bunch of goals. He even took down the website which kept track of those goals because he wasn't actually meeting any of them. So now that we have all that proof that he was a colossal failure, is anybody actually taking him seriously?
Well, he's trying to be taken seriously. In fact, Time Magazine this year gave him an Earth Award, what they call an Earth Award, for being a leader on, climate policy change. I mean, obviously, they've never actually looked at his record because, according to the EPA data, Washington State, under Jay Inslee's, when he was governor, Washington State's CO2 emissions increased literally every single year except 2020 because of COVID. So here's a guy who's saying, well, gee, how disgusting it is that Donald Trump signed a budget that cuts funding for, wind turbines and solar panels and some other things, and because this event was caused by climate change. And so I just said, look, if this was caused by climate change, and I'm dubious that it was, but if it was caused by climate change, Jay, you contributed because you failed to meet all of your own goals. I just think that it's incredible the lack of self-awareness when you fail to achieve your own promises and then say, well, gee, look how horrible climate change is.
Here's something else. Whether you like the big, beautiful bill, whether you don't like the one big, beautiful bill, it was signed on Friday. And you're not going to see any results of it for a very, very long time. But also, aren't these guys the ones who are always telling us that you have to look at this stuff over a time frame, that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're all going to be dead because of climate change? But when the bill is signed on Friday, literally you had the subsidies and everything else up until that point. So if this was caused by climate change, they're not really selling their point when all the stuff we were doing beforehand should have, in theory, stopped this.
Well, and what's more is that what all the models, including, the models that Jay Inslee support say that under any scenario, even if we, basically shut down our economy tomorrow, that temperatures would be higher in the year 2100 than they are today. So there's nothing that we can do for the next, 75 years or even beyond that would actually reduce temperatures and therefore the impacts. So even if we, like I said, even if we take Jay's claim at face value, it's absurd because there's none of the policies that he even advocates would have an impact. But of course, he himself had an opportunity for 12 years to do something and failed repeatedly. So one would think that he would not want to point out his own failure or the consequences of his own failure, but he can't help himself because, he thinks that this is his key to, showing what a great person he is. And when in reality, he failed repeatedly. There's things we can do to help the environment. There's things we can do to reduce the risk of climate change. But Jay didn't do any of those things, and he didn't learn from any of his failures.
In the last few minutes, we have with Todd Myers, who's the Vice President for Research of the Washington Policy Center and author of Time to Think Small. He's an advocate of environmental innovation, and his book discusses many of those small things you can do to make things better for the environment. I mean, I'm looking at this insanity, and it seems like all the stuff Jay Inslee did was just a huge money grab. It had no purpose except for to tax Washingtonians. Look at the Climate Commitment Act. You were one of the very few people who accurately called out what was going to happen to gas prices, and now they're going up again. So is Jay Inslee profiting off all this? Because we know other lawmakers and former lawmakers are the ones who profited off all this. Or is he too dumb to even profit on the crazy legislation he passed?
I don't think Jay is doing it because he profits. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, some money or contracts or things like that. But Jay is doing this because he feels righteous about it. There's a great quote from I'm forgetting the author of it, but I'll think of it in a second. But basically it is a tyrant who is doing it for money I can tolerate, because at least, their sort of ravenous desire for money will take a break and they will use their money on things like that. It's the one who, tyrannizes you for their own, self-benefit, for their own righteousness. Because they never sleep. They always want to do more and more and more. And I think that that's right. So I don't discount, the fact that some people are making money. I mean, I think we've talked about in the past that Reuben Carlyle is a good example of somebody who's not profiting on the legislation that he wrote. But I don't think it's as simple to say, oh, just follow the money. And in fact, many of the people who are the worst offenders in promoting really bad policies are people who are doing it to show how righteous they are. And I think that that's probably closer to the case with Jay.
And reminder that Jay Inslee is the one who had 975 days of emergency powers, but really, really likes those no kings days that the left is running. Todd Myers, Vice President of Research for the Washington Policy Center, author of Time to Think Small, which you should pick up right now, especially if you want to be a good steward of the environment. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Now, here's something else to think about, guys. As you contrast somebody like Jay Inslee and the Democrats who are saying all these despicable things, let's put some faces on this tragedy, shall we? 2 teenage camp counselors from Camp Mystic, that's the camp which is in the news, recounted the moments when they started to write names of the girls they oversaw at the camp on those girls' skin in case the children got swept away by the floodwaters. The 2 teenage camp counselors, Silvana Garza and Maria Paula, told reporters at NMAS that they tried to put a happy face as they prepared to evacuate Camp Mystic as the flood waters were rising in the Country Hill region of Texas on July 4th last week. At least 5 girls so far have been killed, and 10 are still reported missing from the tragedy, as well as some counselors. They said, us as counselors, we start to write our names on our skin anywhere that was visible. We did the same for our girls, wrote their names anywhere that was easy to see. Counselors are like 17, 18 years old. Can you imagine what was going through their minds when they're thinking, we have to write the names on these girls in case they have to identify the bodies? You know your name. If you're conscious, you're going to know your name. The only way that is going to become applicable is if you're unconscious or if you're dead. Think about how much those girls grew up in those few minutes they were dealing with this. As the river swelled, young female campers from the Christian summer camp retreat gathered where the counselors were working. Counselors were told to put on a happy face as they gathered up the young children in order to have them evacuated. At the time, we started to prepare our girls because we thought we were going to be evacuated. We told them to pack a bag, pack their favorite stuffed animal. We didn't know if we were going to be evacuated or not. We were just waiting. Over 90 people have been killed so far by this. The flood waters rose 26 feet in 45 minutes. There's a name you may not know because, unfortunately, you're hearing the names of all these Democrats like Rosie O'Donnell who blame climate change for all this insanity, but there's a name you need to know. American hero Scott Ruskin of the U.S. Coast Guard. He's a rescue swimmer. Yes, for those of you who saw the movie with Kevin Costner and what's his face, the guy from that 70s show. So it's actually a good movie, but he's a rescue swimmer. He saved over 100 people. Over 100 people he saved. Ashton Kutcher, that's what it was, Ashton Kutcher. He saved over 100 people, and it was basically his first week on the job. His first week on the job, he just kept saving people and saving people and saving people. He was interviewed by News Nation about what happened.
Hey, yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'll kind of give you guys a quick synopsis of what was going on. The Coast Guard launched us and decided to send a rescue crew from Air Station Corpus Christi at about 6:30, 7 a.m. on Friday, the 4th of July. I just happened to be on the duty crew with Ian Hopper, Blair Rougefort, Seth Reeves, some of our crew members in the Coast Guard. And they sent us out. We kind of encountered some pretty serious weather, some of the worst flying we've ever dealt with personally. It took us, which should have been an hour flight, probably took us about 7 or 8 just to get into the landing zone. Once made about 4 different approaches trying to get in, we were able to get boots on the ground with the Air National Guard, Department of Public Safety for Texas, game wardens. And we decided to leave me on scene at Camp Mystic. That was kind of our main triage site we were trying to help out with. And we decided, hey, if we leave the rescue swimmer on scene, we'll have more space in our Dolphin MH-65. So based on that, I got on scene, boots on the ground at Camp Mystic. Kind of discovered I was the only person there as far as like first responders go. So yeah, I had about 200 kids mostly, all scared, terrified, cold, having probably the worst day of their life, and I just kind of need to triage them, get them to a higher level of care, and get them off the flood zone with a lot of the US-60 Army helicopters.
Talk about how that works. You got 165, close to 200 kids there. How do you get them out? Just one by one?
Yeah, sir, it's a great question. So the United States Army National Guard was landing their 60s with Task Force 1, some of their rescue swimmers, and they were able to land. We kind of came up with 2 different landing zones. There was one off an archery field and then one at a soccer field. So yeah, we were able to kind of land those 60s in there. And then I was kind of the main guy as far as like grabbing people, usually like 15 to 10 kids at a time, maybe one adult with them, and bringing them over to those 60s and getting them to a different LZ that was kind of safe and had more first responders than just myself out there.
Had you ever done this before?
No, this is my first one. I haven't had any cases before. I've been a rescue swimmer for about a year, fully trained for about 6 months. This is my first experience, but I really just kind of relied on the training we get. Coast Guard rescue swimmers get some of the highest level training in the world. So really just kind of relied on that, and that, just knowing that any of the rescue swimmers in the Coast Guard would have done the exact same, if not better than me. So
training is one thing, but this was the real deal.
Yeah, this is definitely the real deal, but I just remembered that, when I got on scene, there was, 200 kids looking to someone for some sort of comfort and safety. They don't really know what my experience is or my rank or my age. They just know, hey, this guy's a professional and he's here to help us, and I kind of had to live up to that standard. The real heroes, I think, were the kids on the ground. Like, those guys are heroic, and they were dealing with some of the worst times of their lives, and they were staying strong, and that helped inspire me to kind of get in there and help them out.
Well, you sure stayed strong as well. Thank you for joining us this morning. Congratulations on a job well done.
Yeah.
Scott Ruskin, on his first mission, saved 165 kids. 165. Sure, he had help. But unfortunately, we're talking about Rosie O'Donnell. We're talking about Jay Inslee. We're talking about all the idiots who said all the climate change insanity. All we should be talking about is Scott Ruskin, that he saved those kids. We should be talking about the families. We should be talking about their parents. And rather than celebrating the heroes and the people who survived this and honoring the dead, we're talking about the monsters who would politicize this for their own purposes. I saw something fascinating happening on social media as I was at the airport yesterday coming back to Seattle, which is a lot of people were seeing this climate change stuff who aren't politically connected, but saying, why are all these people saying this stuff? It's awful. It's disgusting. These kids are dead. Their only sin, for lack of a better word, was going to sleepaway camp. And it was interesting to see some people drawing some comparisons between that and the people at the Nova Festival, where these are people who go, wait a minute, the people in Israel on October 7th, their only thing they did was go to a music festival and Hamas killed them. And then people are politicizing that as well, trying to make you feel bad for Hamas after all these people were massacred. There's some ice starting to crack. There's some glass shattering that people are starting to see through this crazy left-wing narratives and realizing, wait a minute, anybody who would say people who went to a music festival deserved it, they're evil. Anybody who would say, well, they went to a Christian girls' camp, they deserved it, they're evil. It is so messed up to me that people in this day and age are looking at these tragedies and trying to figure out how to politicize them. It's nauseating and sick. And it reminds me of what a terrible human being people like Jay Inslee really are. Where they go, not, oh, can we let the bodies cool for a day or two? But how quickly can I put up a tweet politicizing all of this? It's sick, it's twisted, it's wrong, it's evil. And that's what these leftists truly, truly are. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. President Trump has been nominated for another Nobel Peace Prize. What is that, 3, 4, 5 in the past few months? We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus tickets to the King County Fair. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, D.C. today. And he said when he met with the president that he has nominated him for a Nobel Prize. Now, mind you, it's insane to me that Trump hasn't won a Nobel Prize yet, given the Abraham Accords in his first term. But let's see what he's done so far. We've got the whole Rwandan business. That's been settled. Iran, Middle East, Abraham Accords. The winning in foreign policy just keeps on coming. According to Fox News, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday that he had sent a letter to the Nobel Prize Committee to nominate President Donald Trump for the Peace Prize. Trump and Netanyahu met at the White House on Monday to discuss developments in the Middle East. While speaking to reporters, Netanyahu spoke about the relationship between Israel and the U.S. Quote, "I want to express the appreciation and admiration not only of all Israelis, but for the Jewish people and many, many admirers around the world for your leadership of the free world, your leadership of a just cause, and pursuit of peace and security. The president has an extraordinary team, and I think our teams together make an extraordinary combination to meet challenges and seize opportunities. But the president has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after another. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved." Trump said he was unaware of the nomination and thanked the prime minister. By the way, you want to prove that this is happening? This is something I never thought I would see in my lifetime. According to the Times of Israel, a group of 5 leading sheikhs in the Palestinian Authority's Hebron district sent a letter to the government expressing a desire to join the Abraham Accords and have peace with Israel. According to the Wall Street Journal, the letter addressed to Economy Minister Nir Barkat expressed the sheikh's desire to break off from the Palestinian Authority and establish Hebron as an emirate that recognizes the state of Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. Then the state of Israel shall recognize the emirate of Hebron as a representative of the Arab residents of the Hebron district. Okay, little history here is necessary so everybody understands it. Right now, Israel is talking about annexing and having sovereignty over the West Bank, as you and I call them, Judea and Samaria. That's where Jesus was born. That's where all those stories happen. That's the Maccabees. That is ancient Israel. Those areas were all part of biblical Israel. They call them the West Bank in other worlds, shall we just say, because then it's not called Judea, because then you know who lived there and why we're called Jews. Now, during the Oslo Accords, the failed Oslo Accords of the 1990s, that's when you had Arafat shaking Rabin's hand with Bill Clinton on the White House lawn. One of the only requirements of the Palestinian Authority was to recognize Israel's right to exist and to educate that Israel has a right to exist. And while Israelis were busy teaching their kids songs about peace and educating towards peace and a two-state solution, you had UNRWA and the Palestinian Authority, that their textbooks were filled with how to kill Jews and why Jews don't deserve to live in Israel. They were educating towards war. UNRWA schools were factories for terrorists. They were manufacturing terrorists. They were brainwashing kids to become terrorists. And what happened on October 7th, and what's happened since then, is the product of generations of these kids being brainwashed. Think about that for a second when you think about the people being brainwashed by the left these days in America, what that could lead to down the road. You're looking at what this leads to over time in the Middle East. Imagine what could happen here when these are the same people who support terrorism. Well, now you have these sheikhs who are saying, wait, we don't want to lose this area. We want to be part of the peace. And Hamas is nearly defeated. So we want to be part of the peace, and we don't want to lose our area. Now, here's something else. Hebron was in biblical Israel. You might recognize the name Hebron, depending on your translation of the Bible. Here's something else. According to the Jerusalem Post, Hamas has reportedly lost around 80% of its control over Gaza. The official explained to the BBC that Hamas's command and control infrastructure had collapsed after months of Israeli airstrikes, which wiped out its political, military, and security leadership here. Quote, let's be realistic here. There's barely anything left of the security structure. Most of the leadership, about 95%, are now dead. All the active figures have all been killed. Logically, it has to continue until its end. All the conditions are aligned. Israel has the upper hand. The world is silent. The Arab regimes are silent. Criminal gangs are everywhere. And society is collapsing. So the security situation is zero. Hamas's control is zero. There's no leadership, no command, no communication. Salaries are delayed. Oh, right. Did we forget about that? They pay terrorists. Now there's no money coming in. Oh, you mean Joe Biden was basically funding the Palestinian Authority? He was funding terrorism. And now that the money has been cut off, the terrorists aren't getting paid anymore? Oh, gee, that was a real tough one to figure out. When the salaries arrive, they're barely usable. Some die just trying to collect them. It's a total collapse. On Sunday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he and U.S. President Donald Trump are determined to eliminate Hamas's military capabilities in addition to bringing the hostages home. He says we are still focused on the Gaza arena. We have also achieved great success there, but there are also tasks to complete. We are determined to ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. This means we will not allow a situation there where there are more kidnappings, more killings, more beheadings, and more invasions. That means one thing: the destruction of Hamas's military and governmental capabilities. Hamas will not be there. So now they're talking about the few Hamas leaders that are left. Do you exile them to be somebody else's problems? Do you execute them for terrorism? What do you do with them? What do you do with the people that are still left in Gaza? But basically, you understand, my friends, Hamas is on the edge of defeat. Iran has no military capabilities left. Hezbollah, completely defeated. You look around at the Middle East, the Houthi rebels are all of a sudden a thing again because they want to be relevant. A few more airstrikes and they're gone. They made the dumb mistake of attacking and sinking a tanker the other day. That means the U.S. is probably going to get involved with that again because they broke the ceasefire. The Middle East has completely been reshaped because of Israeli military might and the U.S. support. Do you understand we could see peace in our lifetime in the Middle East? I have never actually thought I would see that, and I've never been more optimistic that it could be in the future. I've told the story before. I think I told it after October 7th. But I remember as a sixth grader, the Oslo Accords in the 90s, I was a sixth grader when that happened. I remember them wheeling the TV into the classroom, and they said, okay, we're going to watch peace in our time. We're going to watch this. I remember as a sixth grader who didn't care about politics, thinking to myself, land for peace? That hasn't worked before. Why do you think it's going to work now? They're still terrorists. You're making a deal with a terrorist organization. What, they're just going to start making toys for kids or something? Of course not. And I was right, even in sixth grade. Joe Biden and the Democrats have never been right about any of this kind of stuff. But now what you're seeing right now, we could be on the verge of peace in our time. And I'm not saying that because I support President Trump. I'm saying that because I'm looking at what's happening in the world. I've never seen anything like this before. When we come back, my friends, are things going to get better here like they're getting better in the Middle East? When we come back, a new initiative has been filed that's going to force the government to actually deal with the homeless. Our friend Saul Spady will be joining us to tell us what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, you may have missed this in all the July 4th fun, but last week, the Quality of Life Coalition, which is a bipartisan citizens campaign, which has been formed to confront the region's spiraling homelessness and addiction crisis, filed a new ordinance that bans unauthorized public camping and mandates direction to available shelter for the people living out on the streets. This is an initiative, just like we saw from our friends over at Let's Go Washington, to make sure that the government actually does what it's supposed to do. Joining us now, the man behind all this from the Quality of Life Coalition, a name you might recognize and remember, friend of mine, Saul Spady. Thanks so much for being with us today, my friend.
Ari, it's always so great to come on your show and specifically to talk about the rational opposition to the bad policies that are being pushed by our politicians here in King County, and really I can say all across the country. If you're in a big city, a suburban area, the quality of life, the cost of living, and specifically the homeless addiction crisis is out of control. And whether I look at the Republicans or whether I look at the Democrats, no one's really dealing with it. And at a certain point, you just got to step up, write something, file it with the county clerk, and then you'll love this, Ari. We just got to go out and gather signatures, and that's how our career got started in politics, stopping the bad $500 per job head tax. And the same thing, we just had to gather signatures, and lo and behold, the politicians removed their own law before we even had a chance to file our signatures. And I think that something like that might happen this time. I actually don't even think it's going to go to the vote of the people when we file our signatures. I think the polling that I'll share with you as we get deeper into this and with your listeners will direct our King County Council to wake up, smell the roses, and realize triage over tents. We have to direct people to shelter, and to do that, we need a public camping ban, because if those who are going to those in shelter can't direct them to shelter and if there's no repercussion, we see what we have here, which is we can't get people off the street.
So, Saul, this is something where when you and I first met, it seemed like there was a groundswell of support to push back on these insane policies. And it seems like it's stalled at some point. I don't know when it stalled. After the autonomous zone, there was another groundswell, which seemed like, hey, we want to push back on these socialists and all this insanity on the Seattle City Council. And then that stalled. Right now, my question is, are people going to be burned out because they've been through the initiative process a few times, but then it gets to the Washington State Supreme Court and it gets chucked out on some technicality, even though it's the will of the people, just because they don't like the thing?
And I think that's something to really take in and be aware of. But we also need to use these ordinances to let people know that their politicians aren't aligned with them. This is kind of small political news, and a lot of people missed it because it involves Spokane. And I hate saying this as a Seattleite, but sometimes they can go under the news cycle. Spokane did this. They filed a public camping ban. Their city council voted against it, Ari, 5-4. And then they passed it with 75% of the vote. You're totally right. One of the city council members went to the state Supreme Court, and they got it overturned. But this is really interesting, and this is the nitty-gritty. But the state Supreme Court statement said they're not overturning the public camping ban. In fact, they said if this Spokane City Council had passed it, it would have counted. They are just overturning the use of an ordinance to do it. But, and this is where it's really fun, the Spokane City Council is already looking to pass a public camping ban right now themselves, because this is what we call political backlash. And this is where I go to the head tax, Ari. Once they did the polling and they realized that 70% of Seattle was against the head tax, every single politician that voted for it was voted out. That's how we created this swell, this movement that kind of pushed us towards the rational. And you're right, it got taken away in many ways, but we can't rest on our laurels. So my plan is, first, we're going to do a public camping ban. We are going to gather the signatures. We're going to push it to King County Council. We're all going to be shocked. And the King County Council, Claudia Balducci, Germay Zahili, they're going to pass it. And then that's why we as citizens need to wave the attack flag and say, our politicians have no idea what they're doing. They don't have the answer. And we're going to file a statewide 3 strikes, you go to 6 months of involuntary rehab initiative for the state of Washington, because now we'll have the 2 tools we'll need. If you refuse shelter, it's a misdemeanor. If you OD 3 times, you have to get 6 months of shelter. If you refuse shelter 3 times, you'll have 3 misdemeanors. You'll get 6 months of involuntary rehab. And we finally created a system where, I'll repeat it again, it's triage, not tents. We need the rule of law to be able to help these people into a better situation than underneath the West Seattle Bridge doing the Fenty Bend on the daily at risk of dying or ODing, using up hundreds of thousands of our tax dollars, bringing them back to life and then letting them die again. That can't work anymore, and we have to take action. And so that's why I did this. That's why we started the Quality of Life Coalition, and that's why I'm hoping your listeners will, if they can, donate. But really the most important, when they hear about our signature gathering moments, that they come out and they gather signatures with us.
We're talking with Saul Spady from the Quality of Life Coalition. And actually, there's a blueprint for what you're trying to do, is what happened in Burien. Burien, which is in King County, passed a camping ban in public places near schools, etc. And they had to take this sucker all the way to the Supreme Court through various cases because many municipalities are trying to do this, and it seems the left is committed to stopping them. For example, on the King County website right now, there is a section where they talk about, yes, you can involuntarily commit people, but they refuse to do it. It's already law. So basically what you're talking about here is just forcing the politicians, whether they be on the right or the left, to actually do the jobs that they're not doing right now.
And more than anything, it's getting their consultants aware. Because I'll share with you, Ari, I've talked with all of these politicians off the record, and many of them, I'll use Dow Constantine as an example, has shared with me that he agrees with some of these solutions, but he doesn't believe he has the will of the people. That's been a line used by a lot of politicians. I did some polling on this, Ari, like professional polling. This isn't just Saul going to bars and talking to people. And it turns out 77% of King County is in favor of a public camping ban. My new line is, I think we need to help the politicians realize the will of the people over the will of their consultants, because they've gotten confused. And so when we filed the signatures, when they have to debate it, I believe people like Christian Sinderman, Bruce Harrell, a lot of these big-time candidates will get polling back that tells them 60% of Seattle wants a public camping ban, 70% of King County wants it, 80% of Washington wants it. And at that point, we will now see the politicians shift to what we are proposing, because they don't have any solutions. They're just hiding behind their consultants.
I think that's a very fair point, because we see what's happening in Seattle right now, where it's the middle of cruise season, it's the middle of the summer, and they're not clearing anybody even in an election year. And I believe that the reason they're doing that is they believe that the left is the one who they need to convince to vote for them, when they are taking those of us who have the common sense, the people who say, hey, we've had enough of this absolute insanity, the rational opposition, they're taking us for granted. If you want to find out more about the Quality of Life Coalition, you can go to King County QOL. You can also follow them, QOL Coalition, on all social media platforms. Saul Spady, good to talk to you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Ari. Thank you to your listeners for getting involved and for having faith. I know it's so hard to believe that we can get our politicians to listen to us, but really this is the only way, and we need to find supermajority issues, not just statewide, the way Steve Gordon and Brian Haywood were, but really in King County. We turn the tide in King County, and we turn it on issues where everyone agrees with us. No longer be afraid. Bring up public camping, and 3 strikes, you go to 6 months of involuntary rehab. To all of your friends, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, the polling says they agree with us. This is our time.
Saul Spady from the Quality of Life Coalition, thank you so much for joining us today. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway or our good news headlines, I had the most remarkable experience in Las Vegas, and I need to laugh at myself a little bit. So my wife says to me, she really wants to go for our anniversary to one of the Vanderpump bars. And I don't watch the reality shows. All I know is that there's a bunch of crazy people yelling at each other on TV like any other reality show. So we go to Pinky's, which is inside the Flamingo Hotel. I got to say I was I was very, very impressed. Number one, you go to this place and it looks like it's right out of The Great Gatsby. Now, we can't eat anything there, but the menu looked phenomenal. What we could do was go for drinks. And I have to say, that was the best old-fashioned I've ever had in my life. In my life. We went many other places in Vegas that claim they had the best old-fashioned in Vegas. Nuh-uh. This was the best one I have ever had in my entire life. It was that good. If you're into old-fashions and you like Las Vegas, or you're going to Las Vegas, head on over to, I can't believe I'm saying it, Pinky's, which is the Vanderpump place at the Flamingo. That old-fashioned was phenomenal. In fact, I need to remember to write a Yelp review or something. The staff was amazing. And I thought, because it's a Vanderpump place, I don't even know if these people are on the show. I figured they'd be yelling at each other and there'd be drama or whatever. It was an amazing experience. We just went for drinks, so I can only imagine what dinner must be like there. Now, the prices are really, really teensy tiny small. I think the drink I had was $25, $27, but that's Vegas. That's every drink is like that in Vegas, right? So I think my wife and I went to the Old Red nearby later, and the cider or beer or whatever it was that she had was like $25. So prices.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the Flamingo on the Strip is probably one of the cheaper places. It's like one of the longest places on the Strip that has continuously been open. I always wonder when I'm going to go down there and that's going to be like no longer there.
They put a lot of money into this, man. I mean, this bar, it was. I mean, it wasn't hopping when we were there, but they were telling us how many people were there beforehand because we came after the dinner rush because we couldn't have the food anyway. But apparently, this place is hopping all the time. So I got to say, if you're in Vegas, check out Pinky's.
What's crazy is I thought you had it confused, but there's like 3 Vanderpump bars or something restaurants in Las Vegas.
There's like one at the Caesars, and there's a few others.
There's one at like the Paris or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the show is. I've never seen it. I've never watched it. My wife doesn't watch it. I just know from people talking about it and the stupid last name. I don't get the draw or the appeal of any of that stuff.
Not my show, not my thing, not something I'm ever going to watch, but that woman, she knows how to run a bar. I will say that. She knows how to run an eatery. She knows how to run a restaurant.
She has nothing to do with that. She's
Okay.
hired the staff,
Whoever,
put her name on it.
Whatever, I don't care. Whatever it is, that place was phenomenal. It really, really was. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We are also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit MadronaFinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away 4 tickets to the King County Fair, July 17th through 20th. King County Fair, the fair to see since 1863, July 17th through 20th at the Enumclaw Expo Center. With carnival rides, free entertainment, livestock, and shopping, saddle up for heart-pounding action and edge-of-your-seat excitement. Watch Fearless Cowboys take on the toughest bulls and broncs in town. Grab your boots and get your tickets now for the King County Fair. When they say livestock and shopping, do they mean shopping for livestock? No, I think they just mean shopping. Okay, sorry. That's me reading the copy. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the King County Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Kevin a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Also wishing my beautiful bride a happy 22nd wedding anniversary. That's right, my friend's been married for 22 years. People at Vanderpump asked me what the secret to success was. I said you can either be right or you can be happy. That's going to do it for us today. Fear not, my friends. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.